Okay, what we're going to talk about here is nodes. We looked at them in the beginning of the semester, and we're going to see how we can make these nodes and connect them to create things that we call linked lists. So if we draw a picture of a node basically is going to look like this. It's going to be an object that has two parts. It's going to have a data part. Let's say, for example, here I put an A, and it's going to have another part that's going to be a link that's going to essentially be a pointer to an object of the same type, in other words, to another node. Right? So we want to be able to create this first node and this a second node, so you put a B over here and so on. Say this node is going to be called X, and this node is going to be called Y. So we want to be able to write something that's something like this. We want to be able to say node, right? That's going to be my object node, and I'm going to say, well, here's one node called X, and it's going to have an A in the data field, and another one called Y, and Y is going to have, say, a B in the data field. And I want what should happen when I do that is it should first create me a node called X, and X is going to look just like we saw over here. Here's going to be the X. It's not going to be connected to anything at the time, and then when I say that Y, I'm going to create the second one. Here's going to be my node Y. And every time I create it, by the way, what I'd like to happen is I'd like there to be a zero in the link field, in the field that connects the two together, because these are pointers, and it's always a good idea to initialize pointers to zero. I want to be able to create them, to connect them, as you see over here. So when I connect them, I'm going to want to have a function called link that's going to link them up, and I want to say something like this. I want to say, well, I've got a node X. I want you to go to node X and go to the link field of X, right? So I want to be able to say link, right, a function link, no parameters, and I'm going to say that link is the address of Y, right? So what's going to happen there is it's going to create this picture, right? It's going to create the arrow that links up X and Y, right? That is what we want to be able to do. We also want to be able to change the data of a field. So I want to be able to, let's say, for example, I want to go to, let's say, node B and put to node Y and put a C instead of the B. So I want to be able to say something like, okay, go to node Y, and in the data field, so I'm going to have a function called data, which gets me to the data field of Y. I want you to put the character instead of the B. I want you to put, say, a C. And what that's going to do over there is it's going to go over here to this data field, and it's going to get rid of the B, and instead of the B, it's going to put a C. Right? So the question is, how do we get that to happen? So to do the first thing, right? What is the first thing that we see over here? The first thing is these constructors. So I want to be able to say X is a node, and I want to be able to pass a parameter into there and initialize my node with the parameter, right? So we know the way to do that is to create a constructor for the class. And so let me make a class called node. So the class is going to be called node. And I open it up, and I have the private part. And the private part is where I describe my data. So describe the structure of my class. So I'm going to have two fields over here, right? And the two fields are going to be a field that's going to be the data field. This is my data field over here. And my second field is going to be a link field, and that's the link field. So the data field and the link field. I'm going to have the word data describe the data field, but here I'm going to put it with a capital D. So it's going to say data. That's my data field. And what's the data field going to have? It's going to basically have a character. So I say char data. And my other field, my second field over here, it's going to have a pointer. So it's going to be called link. It's going to allow me to link these nodes together. And the question is, notice again, I'm just using capitals over here. And what is it going to be pointing to? Right? So my link field over here is going to be pointing to this. But it's not going to be pointing just to the character. It's not going to be pointing just to the first part of it. My link field, this part over here, right, this is my link field, that's going to be pointing to the whole node. Right? Consequently, the link field is going to be a pointer to a node. Right? So my link field is a pointer, and it is a pointer to a node. Okay? That's interesting. And so that is going to be the private part. And so when I say something like, when I go over here and I say node X has an A in it, the cookie cutter is going to come out. It's going to use this piece over here to see what it looks like, and it's going to create a data part, right? Something called data, which is going to be a character. And the second thing it's going to create is a link part, which is going to be a pointer to this next object on the side over there.